The year is 218 BC. The freezing mist of the Italian Alps clings to the jagged, snow-capped peaks. Through the whiteout, a low rumble echoes against the mountainside. The ground begins to tremble. Soon, towering gray leviathans emerge from the blizzard. They are not mythical beasts, but the ancient world's ultimate weapon of shock and awe. The Carthaginian general Hannibal has just completed an impossible march from Spain to Italy. With him are 70,000 men, 20,000 horses, and 37 war elephants. To march these colossal animals across thousands of kilometers was more than a military strategy. It was an epic statement of unimaginable wealth and power. But how did a force of nature become the living, breathing tanks of the ancient battlefield? And what happened when the Roman war machine finally stood face to face with them? The behemoths of Carthage. Between 264 BC and 146 BC, the Mediterranean world was violently reshaped by the Punic Wars, a series of brutal conflicts between the rival superpowers of Rome and Carthage. In this era of sword and spear, the Carthaginians deployed a weapon that shattered cavalry lines and left infantrymen paralyzed with terror. For the young, inexperienced soldiers of the time, facing a charging elephant was a nightmare made real. With their sheer size and terrifying strength, these towering beasts functioned like ancient tanks. Yet, Carthage was not the first empire to harness this destructive power. To understand the origins of this military phenomenon, we must look further east, and decades into the past. Rising Action Part 1. The Macedonian Encounter. In the ancient world, war elephants were already legendary. Centuries before Carthage marched on Rome, the practice was widespread in India. It was here, in 326 BC at the Battle of Hydaspes, that Alexander the Great became the first Greek general to encounter them, facing the Indian king Poros. According to the later writings of Plutarch, King Poros was a man of such immense stature that he rode his elephant as a cavalryman would ride a horse. Plutarch claimed that this elephant was so fiercely loyal and intelligent that, as the battle concluded, it gently used its muscular trunk to pull the spears from the wounded king's body. Alexander would ultimately defeat Poros, commemorating the victory with a silver coin depicting a Macedonian horseman attacking an elephant. But the victory carried a dark omen. Alexander's forces heard rumors that deeper into India lay kings who commanded armies of 6,000 war elephants. Terrified by the prospect, Alexander's men refused to march further. The conqueror of the known world was forced to end his campaigns and return home. Rising Action, Part 2. The beasts come to the Mediterranean. Rome's first terrifying introduction to these beasts came in 280 BC at the Battle of Heraclea. King Pyrrhus, a Greek successor to Alexander, invaded Italy with a contingent of 20 elephants. The Roman horses, confronted with the alien sight and pungent smell of the beasts, panicked and threw their riders. Roman infantrymen were either crushed underfoot or picked off by spearmen stationed in turrets on the elephants' backs. Pyrrhus won the battle, though at such a devastating cost to his own forces that it birthed the term Pyrrhic victory. But more importantly, Pyrrhus soon took his elephants to Sicily to fight the Carthaginians. It was a fatal lesson. The Carthaginians, who had almost certainly never used elephants in war before, observed Pyrrhus's tactics. They began studying his strategic writings, forever changing their military outlook. Rising Action, Part 3. The Carthaginian War Machine. Returning to North Africa, Carthage began raising its own formidable elephant army. However, historians believe they did not use the massive 11-foot Asian elephants. Instead, they relied on a now extinct species, the North African bush elephant. Native to the Atlas Mountains of Morocco and Algeria, these beasts stood roughly 8 feet at the shoulder. Because of their smaller, squatter build, they couldn't support the heavy turrets and multiple riders seen in Pyrrhus's armies. Instead, they became solid, single-rider battering rams. Their primary weapon was their mass, trampling infantry, and occasionally impaling enemies with their tusks. Carthage paired these beasts with clusters of skirmishers, elite archers, slingers, and javelin throwers. The elephants would clear a bloody path, acting as heavy armor, while the skirmishers protected the flanks of the beasts from incoming enemy missiles. This devastating combination was proven at the Battle of Bagradas in 255 BC, during the First Punic War. Facing defeat, Carthage enlisted a Spartan mercenary general named Xanthippus. He led a relentless charge of 100 elephants straight into the heart of the Roman infantry. The beasts sowed absolute chaos, allowing the Carthaginian cavalry to envelop the broken Roman ranks. Climax: Rome adapts, but the Romans were a people defined by their grim determination to adapt. They quickly realized that elephants, for all their strength, had a fatal flaw: panic. When terrified, an elephant could not distinguish friend from foe, running amok and trampling its own handlers. Rome began experimenting with desperate countermeasures. They built ox-drawn wagons, bristling with spikes and scythes. They wrapped poles in pitch, soaked cloth, setting them alight to thrust into the beasts' faces. Later Roman sources even record a far more disturbing tactic: coating live pigs in flammable pitch, setting them ablaze, and unleashing them onto the battlefield. While modern historians debate the authenticity of this bacon attack, the horrific squealing and the sight of a blazing, mobile target would have undoubtedly sent any animal into a frenzy. The turning point came at the Battle of Panormus in 250 BC. The Roman general Metellus unleashed a withering rain of javelins upon a Carthaginian elephant charge. Wounded and panicked, the towering beasts wheeled around, tearing through their own ranks, crushing Carthaginian soldiers, and breaking the army's formation. This culminated decades later, in 202 BC at the pivotal Battle of Zama. Here, Hannibal launched a frontal assault, using 80 young, unproven war elephants. But the Roman general Scipio was ready. He arranged his infantry in deep, segmented formations. As the massive beasts charged, the Romans simply stepped aside, opening wide corridors through their ranks. The elephants, naturally seeking the path of least resistance, charged straight down these empty lanes, where Roman skirmishers mercilessly stabbed them from the sides. Those beasts that survived were captured or hunted down. The driverless elephants collided with Hannibal's own cavalry, unraveling his lines. It was Hannibal's worst and final defeat against Rome. A lasting legacy. When the Second Punic War finally ended, the peace treaty came with a strict, non-negotiable condition: Carthage was forbidden from ever raising or keeping war elephants again. Despite later pro-Roman historical sources attempting to downplay the effectiveness of the beasts, portraying them as problematic and uncontrollable, the sheer effort Rome put into banning them speaks volumes. It was a reluctant admission of respect and fear. Even against a highly disciplined, trained Roman army, the war elephant remained a profound existential threat. The Carthaginian war elephants remain one of history's most fascinating collisions of nature and human ambition. They were majestic creatures of the wild, drafted into the wars of men, tasked with breaking empires.